Hello people, I'm back. Elevate Truth TV is reborn. Now, I thought that I'd be starting off this new era of Elevate TV, Elevate Truth TV, by going into the fact that I've been away. I was locked up, imprisoned again, for fighting to see my children. I was going to go into the lies that were told, the fact that I represented myself in the Crown Court and destroyed the CPS, the corrupt CPS, and the corrupt judges that were involved in my case. I was going to go into all of these things, but I've had to put that on the back burner for another day. So those issues will be to come. I'm going to be going into stuff like the narcissism, but we're in a kind of interesting phase of humanity at the moment, unprecedented, where humanity has been shut down, put on hold, a massive reboot, so to speak. And I thought I'd start this new phase of Elevate Truth TV by going into the media, really, and this fake media staged protest. Now, I don't want to get involved in the whole conspiracy thing, but I'm going to break down the media and this staged event. I'm calling it a staged event, and I'm going to show you exactly why. Now, I want you to bear in mind a couple of things before I roll the footage that I'm going to roll. And I want you to take close notice of the people that are being arrested at this staged event, the officers around the people that are being arrested, and I want you to pay close attention to the main protagonists in the event, which is a person in blue by the name of Phillip Anthony Hartley. We also have the brother of Jeremy Corbyn. This is supposed to give him some kind of credentials and legitimacy. I want you to pay attention to a couple of facts before you watch this footage, because when I first saw the footage, I shared it on social media, and the reason why I shared it was because my emotions were triggered, and I saw people fighting and the police, who I don't like. I'm going to do videos on why I don't like those people as well. I saw the police manhandling people, arresting people who are supposedly fighting for people's freedoms. So my emotions were triggered and I shared the video, but then I started to think about the video and thought, what did I see? And the fact that it didn't ring true. So I want you to pay attention. I want you to bear in mind one thing. Who is being arrested? The people at the event, including the police, who none of them are wearing any form of protective clothing. Yes, there are one or two of them wearing blue gloves, but there's no a real attention to PPE, as what it's been called, personal protection or whatever. Now, equipment. Now, the thing is this: the police at any time could have cordoned off Hyde Park, and they could have made sure that nobody entered the park to make a protest. They didn't do that. But what you'll see from the footage is that there's almost as many police as there is so-called protesters. And there's also almost as many media people. Now, I want you to bear one thing in mind as well, that the amount of people that are walking around with cameras, whether they be mobile phones or proper camera devices, is far and away above the amount of media that exists in this country. And obviously there's a lot of freelance photographers who will sell footage to the main newspapers or TV companies. But what you'll find is that the same people seem to be turning up in these videos, that the major amount of photographers seem to be taken. Now, without further ado, let's go in and let's go deeply in. So I want you to watch the entirety of this first clip. Let's go for it.
How am I under arrest for what? Yes. For what? I never even did anything. Look what you're doing to me.
Put your arm behind your back.
Look
what you're doing to my wrist. Look. Did I even do this?
Listen, don't resist.
For what?
My colleagues arrested you.
For what?
Breaching the direction given to you under the code,
You
under the
asked me
regulations,
to leave
under the
the
health
park.
protection.
You asked me to leave the park and I was walking.
Anything you do, so you need to give an evidence.
What does she do?
It's necessary for public health, okay?
How are you asking me to leave and I'm walking in the direction?
You need to move now. Take your picture.
Protecting us.
Vaccination is not necessary.
Step back. Move back. Step back.
So I'll do that.
Can you put it in my bag?
Yeah, we will.
Can you put it in my bag?
Sir, we will proceed right now.
You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed.
I will put them in your bag. So what we'll do, sir, you can just
Be
get
ashamed of yourself.
in the carrier, we'll then reassess that. Moving back, just get
Back. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Am I detained?
Pardon?
Am I detained? Right, bye then.
You need to
Leave
go
me
home.
alone, please.
You're under arrest.
Right, okay, right. What for? What for?
Pardon?
What for?
For breach the Health Protection Act 2020 coronavirus.
Can you all see this,
Regulation
please, guys?
7.
Can you see
You
this,
do not have to
please?
say anything, but it may harm you.
Get up, man. I've not done anything wrong. I've not done anything wrong. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Take a step back. Just take a step back from it.
Take me secretly siding. What for?
Keep going back.
No, I haven't. No, I've had no rights. I've got no rights read to me. I've had no rights. No rights have been read to me. No rights. Unlawful arrest. Unlawful. They're trying to hurt me. They're trying to hurt me.
Just take a step up, Phillip.
Can I speak to the custody sergeant?
we're back.
Just for having a voice. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what you're doing is literally, this is brutal, man.
Don't move back. Don't move back.
What are you going to do with that? Are you exercising at the moment?
I'm having a picnic in a minute.
Are you? With who?
I don't agree with what's happening. I think we're being lied to a lot by the media. I know people who've had lost loved ones, who've died of other causes and have had COVID-19 written on their death certificate.
And we need to claim our freedom from the dictator Boris Johnson.
Don't worry.
And not just in this country, my friend, all around the world. We need to follow our American cousins who are leading the way. Everyone needs to know this. People are being arrested at the moment for freedom of speech.
Would you please leave the area? I'm not leaving. Right. Do you understand that you're breaching Regulation 7?
No, because I'm not breaching regulations. This is unlawful what you're trying to do.
Why is it unlawful?
It is unlawful.
Why?
Because it's in breach of various other acts. It's also in breach of many common laws, and it's not lawful.
If I ask you to leave and you're not leaving, okay, I'll explain that you could get issued a fine and you're still not leaving. Can I take your details for this fine, please?
Pull up, please. Give a direction to go home.
The first thing that I thought about was the fact that in my experience, the police never want to be filmed. And if you pull a camera on them or a phone, the first thing they will try to convince you is that you're not allowed to do that. But if you notice with this incident, you never see the actual reason why anybody's being arrested, but you see them at the point of arrest. With the exception of the person in blue, which his name, as I've mentioned, is Phillip Anthony Hartley. Now, another interesting thing is this. Nobody's supposed to be in the park. No one. No one's supposed to be at this protest. Not just the protesters, but also the people with cameras. They're not supposed to be there either. So, in terms of the police not wanting to be filmed, wouldn't this be the ideal time to also say to the people who are filming stuff that they also need to be gone? Why are they able to just walk around with immunity, with cameras, phones and all other manners of devices to record these incidents? Now I want you to focus on this police officer. Now we'll be seeing this officer a few times and we'll be seeing him in different footage, but in this first bit we're hearing him tell somebody to move back, but the camera that is right in his face, or appears to be right in his face, he ignores as if it isn't there. And this will be a theme that carries on throughout the whole of everything that I say. The police officers seem to be oblivious to the fact that cameras are right in their face, sometimes filming almost over their shoulders, as in this case. So let's have a look.
Step back!
Move back.
Step back!
We'll now see this officer take part in the arrest of Jeremy Corbyn's brother. And then we will see them take the individual off to the police station, I suppose, or the van, or wherever they do their first statements. So this individual would be one of the people that made the arrest and would obviously have to fill in a statement about the arrest. Remember, at no time does anybody seem to have any issue with the cameraman who's following and is always in front of these arrests. Let's go in again.
Sir, we will proceed right now.
You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed. You should be ashamed.
I will put them in your mouth. So what we'll do, sir, just
Be ashamed of yourself.
in the carrier, we'll then reassess that.
Now let's have a look at what I will term now as Freedom Man, the man who seems to be spearheading one of the speeches. That again, none of the police are stopping the camera people around, the media around, from taking pictures, from recording this event, and they're given free rein to make their speeches before the said arrests. So let's have a look at the Freedom Man.
We need to claim our freedom from the dictator Boris Johnson.
Yeah. Don't worry.
And not just in this country, my friend, all around the world. We need to follow our American cousins who are leading the way.
Now, what are the odds that the same police officer would be involved in the arrest of both of the main speakers at this event, Jeremy Corbyn's brother and also Mr. Freedom Man? Earlier he was carrying or holding the megaphone for Jeremy Corbyn. Now he's holding a banner, the banner that the Freedom Man was carrying. So, in essence, he's gone and he's put Jeremy Corbyn's brother into the police van and he's come back to arrest another individual, all the time allowing the main camera people to film all these series of events, and at no time acknowledging that the camera people are around them. It's almost as if they can't see the camera people. They can't see the media around them, but they can see the protesters. And again, I need to stress this, that nobody, not the press, not standers by, are supposed to be in this park at the moment, because this is supposed to be locked down, is it not? So if the protesters are violating the so-called law, then aren't the media people and the standers by who are filming stuff? Because I want you to pay close attention to the people around and how many people are actually filming this so-called event, this staged event.
Everyone needs to know this. People are being arrested at the moment for freedom of speech.
Now this individual, who seems to be being able to speak with no problems at all, and if you look in the background you can see many police officers and people standing around with immunity. Nobody seems to be being arrested, and this individual speaks quite freely. We also see that if you look at in the background and an individual sat there with her child. Again, doesn't seem to be any issue with these people. So what is the criteria for being arrested? I want us to go back to the original start of the first clip that I played. And I want you to look at the face of the woman who's first been arrested, who appears to be smiling.
How am I under arrest for what? For what? I never even did anything. Look what you're doing to my...
Put your arm behind your back.
Look what you're doing to my wrist. Look. Did I even do anything?
Listen, don't resist.
For what?
My colleagues arrested you.
For what?
Breaching the direction given to you under the code,
You
under
asked
the regulations, under the health protection.
You asked me to leave the park and I was walking.
Anything you do, so you need to give an evidence. It's necessary for public health, okay?
How you asked me to leave and I'm walking in the direction.
You need to move now. Take your picture.
Protecting us.
Now, this individual seems to be smiling if she is experiencing some kind of duping delight, and the person with her is untouched. The police seem to think, well, okay, we'll arrest her, but we'll leave this individual alone. He actually handed the bag to the police officer, but the police officer didn't decide to arrest this individual. So what is the criteria for arrests? Is it just because they feel that one person isn't going to resist and another person is? Doesn't make sense at all. There seems to be enough police officers to make sweeps of certain areas and arrest numbers of people, but they don't. They seem to pick certain individuals. And as I say, if you've noticed, the camera is always in front, as if the cameraman is running in front of the individual, catching up and running in front of the individual, and then these bits of footage are being edited together. Doesn't make sense. Now this still is taken from the footage by The Guardian, and on it you can see it says that at least 6 people have been arrested. So the police came out with the intention to arrest people, but The Guardian newspaper doesn't seem to know how many people were actually arrested on the day. At least 6, 7, 5, at least 6. Doesn't make sense. The fact of the matter is this: even in the footage from the first clip that I showed, it showed at least 5 people being marched off to waiting vans. And the other issue I'd like to raise is this: that people keep getting carried or walked to vans. This isn't the way the police operate. The police bring the vans to you. They detain you and bring the vans to you. And it's the shortest possible walk they will take. They won't be marching you across these vast areas, and marching you so that the police and so that other people can see and possibly get involved, especially in a situation like this, which is supposed to be quite volatile, is it not? Volatile situation where a mother is happy to sit there with her little baby. Doesn't ring true. So this still highlights another thing and brings us to the star of the show, really, which is Mr. Phillip Anthony Hartley. In the still you can see that he's being arrested, or he's being detained. But let's take it back to the beginning. Let's go in.
Am I detained?
Pardon?
Am I detained? Right, bye then.
Leave
me alone, please.
You're under arrest.
Right, okay, right. What for? What for?
Pardon?
What for?
For breach the Health Protection Act 2020
Can you all see
coronavirus.
this,
Regulation
guys?
7.
Can you see
So you
this,
do not have to
please?
say anything, but it may harm you.
Get up, man. I've not done anything wrong. I've not done anything wrong. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Just take a step back. Just take a step back from it.
Take me secrets inside him.
Please, keep going back.
No, I haven't. No, I've had no rights. I've got no rights read to me. I've had no rights. No rights have been read to me. No rights. Unlawful arrest. Unlawful. They're trying to hurt me. They're trying to hurt me.
Now, the interesting thing is that I happen to know this individual. I had met this individual on the first Parental Alienation Day, and he was very vocal, very passionate. So, when I was planning to have the parental alienation protest last year, before I was arrested, I contacted this individual and asked him to attend the demonstration, the protest. He said he would be there, but because I was arrested, the protest never happened. Lo and behold, I see him pop up on this news footage. So I tried to contact him the other day. He said he was in the shower. So I said, as you can see from the Facebook messages, I stated, I've seen you on the front line, or words to that effect, and I wish you well. More power to you, or something to that effect. And lending support. It seemed odd that he didn't want to take my call, but I didn't think much of it. Later, when I started to think about, was this footage real? I sent him a message asking him who had taken the footage, and he mentioned that it was real press. Again, he wouldn't take the call. When I asked him what happened after his arrest, he sent me this news article. Now, this news article goes into detail about what happened, but I raised the issue to him. Why are you sending me a news article when I wanted you to tell me about it? He stated that it would save him time and energy. At this point, when I saw the staged picture where you can clearly see that he's not even being held properly by one of the officers, and that the officer is actually holding his cardboard cutout and his stickers. When I raised the fact that he's an agent, he got belligerent and sent me this video, a strange video, where he said that the reason he hasn't answered is because he's on the toilet. I'll let you listen to his own words.
Just having a shit, dickhead, yeah? Or I'm just having a shit, dickhead, yeah? Or I'm just having a shit, dickhead, yeah? Or I'm just having a shit, dickhead, yeah?
This guy was so panicked that he literally snitched on himself. He had to prove to me that there was a reason for him not to take my call. I basically sent a message back to him saying that you can't take the call, but you can make a little video of yourself half naked on the toilet to prove to me that you're too busy to answer the call. He didn't reply, but he did block me. He ran. Now, this is the man that is shouting in the streets, talking about how the police are trying to hurt me. He's going against the police. He's fighting against the police. He's protesting for our rights. But a simple challenge from me has him half naked on the toilet, which is weird, to say the least. And he's run. He's done a runner. Now I'm going to say this to you. He's an agent. If anybody wants to challenge me about him being an agent, working for the police, working for the 5-0, paid off most probably, so that they can stage these fake events to program the masses, to control the masses. And I can tell you why they stage these events, these protests. One, because they want to show a deterrent to the people who will really fight the system. That's one. The other thing is this. They want to control everything. They don't want Mr. Average, Mr. Joe Blogs to go and do his own little protest. They want to control the protests. They want to control everything. And this is an example of them controlling everything. Now, you can think that I am a crazy person if you want, but I tell you this. They want to control every aspect of our lives. And they already control every aspect of the fake media that we see every day. We're being fed lies constantly. And this person is a disgrace. Now, I'm giving you the opportunity, Phillip, Anthony, Hartley, to come and defend yourself and say that this is not a staged event. But never in my experience have the police lost grip of my hand and are holding my cardboard placard and my stickers for me or anybody else. When they get hold of you They get hold of you, but they didn't have hold of you. And you've done a runner because you can't take it. I've rattled your little cage. You're not an activist, you're a liar. And there's many other people, and this is the thing. This staged event shows that even when we think we're fighting the system's actually playing us. Now, I want to finish with something very important. So just bear with me. Watch.
When I came back to the United States, I decided that if you could use propaganda for war, you could certainly use it for peace. And propaganda got to be a bad word because of the Germans using it. So what I did was to try to find some other words. So we found the word Council on Public Relations.
Bernays returned to New York and set up as a public relations counsel in a small office off Broadway. It was the first time the term had ever been used. Since the end of the 19th century, America had become a mass industrial society, with millions clustered together in the cities. Bernays was determined to find a way to manage and alter the way these new crowds thought and felt. To do this, he turned to the writings of his uncle Sigmund. While in Paris, Bernays had sent his uncle a gift of some Havana cigars. In return, Freud had sent him a copy of his general introduction to psychoanalysis. Bernays read it, and the picture of hidden irrational forces inside human beings fascinated him. This series is about how those in power have used Freud's theories to try and control the dangerous crowd in an age of mass democracy. At the heart of the story is not just Sigmund Freud, but other members of the Freud family. This episode is about Freud's American nephew, Edward Bernays. Bernays is almost completely unknown today, but his influence on the 20th century was nearly as great as his uncle's. Because Bernays was the first person to take Freud's ideas about human beings and use them to manipulate the masses. He showed American corporations for the first time how they could make people want things they didn't need by linking mass-produced goods to their unconscious desires. Out of this would come a new political idea of how to control the masses. By satisfying people's inner selfish desires, one made them happy and thus docile. It was the start of the all-consuming self, which has come to dominate our world today. Bernays set out to experiment with the minds of the popular classes. His most dramatic experiment was to persuade women to smoke. At that time, there was a taboo against women smoking, and one of his early clients, George Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Corporation, asked Bernays to find a way of breaking it. A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America, and for a large fee, he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises. Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came, and Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
A symbol, women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of freedom.
Every metaphor and analogy has to come from somewhere. Perhaps they are rare pearls that drop from the pens of an elite corps of bards and scribblers and then are hoarded by a grateful populace. But given their prevalence in language, it seems more likely that they are the natural products of the way everyone's mind works.
And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable with a single symbolic ad.
Eddie Bernays saw the way to sell product was not to sell it to your intellect, that you ought to buy an automobile, but that you will feel better about it if you have this automobile.
What the corporations realized they had to do was transform the way the majority of Americans thought about products. One leading Wall Street banker, Paul Mazur of Lehman Brothers, was clear about what was necessary. We must shift America, he wrote, from a needs to a desires culture. People must be trained to desire, to want new things even before the old have been entirely consumed. We must shape a new mentality in America. Man's desires must overshadow his needs. In 1939, New York hosted the World's Fair. Edward Bernays was a central advisor. He insisted that the theme be the link between democracy and American business. At the heart of the fair was a giant white dome that Bernays named Democracy. And the central exhibit was a vast working model of America's future, constructed by the General Motors Corporation.
To my father, the World's Fair was an opportunity to keep the status quo, that is, capitalism, in a democracy. It was consumerist, but at the same time, you inferred that in a funny way, democracy and capitalism went together.
The World's Fair was an extraordinary success and captured America's imagination. The vision it portrayed was of a new form of democracy, in which business responded to people's innermost desires in a way politicians could never do. But it was a form of democracy that depended on treating people not as active citizens, as Roosevelt did, but as passive consumers. Because this, Bernays believed, was the key to control in a mass democracy.
It's not that the people are in charge, but that the people's desires are in charge. The people are not in charge. The people exercise no decision-making power within this environment. So democracy is reduced from something which assumes an active citizenry to the idea of the public as passive consumers. Driven primarily by instinctual or unconscious desires, and that if you can in fact trigger those needs and desires, you can get what you want from them.
I showed you that about Edward Bernays to illustrate a point, is that they have staged everything for as long as they've wanted to, and they're doing that now. I'm trying to hit home the fact that you can think whatever you want, but the event that I've outlined to you was staged. The individual who just got caught with his pants down, so to speak, is an example of people that work with the system in order to fool the masses. Luckily, we have people like me, Elevate Truth TV, that's here to wake up the masses. And one of the reasons I want to do that, and one of the reasons I made this video to come back is this. It's a terrible time we're living in, but there is hope. And many people know that I'm fighting for my children. Well, I'm fighting for all the children, and we should all be fighting for the children, because if this mind control can be so easily passed off on us, then what about the children and the next generations? It's time for us to wake up and fight. This is me signing off, Elevate Truth TV. I'm glad to be back. And one of the things that I've noticed as well is this. I've not done anything with my channels for a long time. Keep getting halted because of the issues with my children and getting locked up. But I'm going to tell you all about that. But the thing is this, for some reason people have still been subscribing to my channel, and I want to thank those people, because especially in the last few days I've seen people subscribing and I'm thinking, well, wow. Now I don't ask people to subscribe to my channel, that's one thing. It's important for me not to ask, because everybody, it seems, asks you if, you know, like this and subscribe to this. But I feel this, if people want to do it, they'll do it. If they want to watch a video and then just move on with their life, it's all good. So bye for now. It's good to be back. Take care.